Hello, everyone. My name is Emily Potter, and I'm the host of the Living the Dream Video Summit. I'm a musician and the director of the Million Kisses Foundation, and I have gathered together for the summit 21 presenters because I want to ask them one main question. How are you living the dream? I want to ask this question because so many of us are limited with fears and insecurities and doubts and money blocks, all different things that make it so that we're not living the dream. And I truly believe that that's what we came here to do. So I want to ask each one of these individuals. We have Reiki masters and shamans and life coaches and business coaches of all kinds. And so I want to ask them this question, and they're going to give us all of the tools and all of the exciting things that work for them that we can perhaps bring into our own lives. So today I get to introduce you to Emily Spirit. Welcome, Emily.
Hi, how are you?
Good. I met Emily in our community here in Salt Lake City, Utah, and we have actually not spent a lot of time together, but Emily, when I met you, I knew right from the get-go that you are the real deal, that what you are doing is truly, truly powerful. And I just want to thank you for who you are in the world and that you have truly given your gifts to the world.
Thank you. Thank you. That means a lot.
Absolutely.
Thoughts when I first met you too. I just thought, wow, there is a really unique individual that's just so divinely connected to her purpose.
Thank you.
It's always inspiring to meet people such as you.
I agree. I agree with that. So I have some really, really wonderful questions for you today. We get to tell the audience that you are a natural empath. You are a medium. You have a passion for empowering, self-empowerment, empowerment. And the passion that you have is specifically in a very divine and intuitive way, spiritually based. And so I want to first ask you something that I read that you said, you specialize, and this is something that is really wonderful that you have found for yourself. You specialize in reading energy at its core to reveal the real story of illnesses. I feel like our audience would be really interested in hearing more about that.
It's often called medical intuition. And it first began actually when I was on a phone call with a client, and she was complaining that she was having some physical pains. And I'll often get like a bit of a headache when I have information that needs to be slowed down. So I grabbed a piece of paper and a pen, and I just started scribbling. And what I noticed was that I was drawing the chakras. And if you're not familiar with the chakra systems, that's okay. It's an Eastern philosophy way of talking about how the body holds its energy. So I started drawing the chakra for her, and then I interpreted it to her in asking her, what's going on with your stomach? What are you feeling in your body right now? What is the sensation that you're having? Because I'm empathic and I'll get the physical sensations within myself. But in this drawing, that's what was so foretelling. I saw that there was an energetic block. So I talked her through it. And then the next time I had a client come and see me in person, I just, again, felt really inspired to get out that piece of paper and start drawing. And I drew the chakras. And I've taught classes on how others can draw their own chakras. And it's a fairly easy technique, actually. Anybody can be taught. I've taught as young as 8 years old to, I think the oldest was like 60 or 70. And everybody interprets their symbology, their drawings a little bit differently, but there's a main science to it. And I'm so passionate about my own unique connection to that I hope to write also another book that's specifically on how to interpret the chakras in that intuitive way. I did come across a girl, and this is kind of fascinating. A little girl, she was about 8 or 9 years old, and she was from India. And I was over in Australia, and we were both kind of watching this other woman, and she said, hey, Mom, and she was like tugging on her mom's sleeve, hey, Mom, that lady, she's sick. And I looked over at her and I said, oh, do you see what's going on with her? And she just kind of got shy and said, well, yeah. And I said, yeah, and I drew it, and I said, this is what I see. And she goes, yeah, and then she described what she saw. And I said, I've never met anybody else that sees it this way that I see it. She goes, oh, there's lots of people like that in India.
Wow. Well, I want to ask you.
fun.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Did you want to finish?
Oh, I was just saying that that was a fun introduction to knowing that there's other people that do it in the same fashion that I do, just not in the culture that I've been familiar with.
Well, that's actually, I want to hear more of your history. How did you first find out that you were an empath and a medium? That's so beautiful. What a gift that is. And I know that people who have those divine intuition, history, it sometimes is really scary. How did you first find out that you were an empath and a medium?
My youngest memories might kind of blow some people's minds, but I actually have a few distinct memories of being in my mother's womb. I felt the world. I felt the need to protect my mother, actually. We're not really able to confirm what that situation was in my mother's memory, but the incidences that I do have memory that I can confirm were when I was traveling in my neighbor's field. They had this big open field in their behind their home, and they had this pond, and I came across it, and I've actually written stories on this and had it published. But I would get an overwhelming sense within an area that would be so overwhelming that it would often bring me to my knees to where I was consumed by the experience, where nobody could even talk to me or anything, because I would just go into this kind of alternate reality. I would want to close my eyes, and I'd want to slow my body down, often sitting or even kneeling down, and then a video would play in my mind, and that video could be so much information, but only in a matter of seconds. And then I would feel that I would kind of shake off that feeling and come back out again, and I could tell you what the story was. And the story almost always was about some type of death or some type of problem with a spirit who's passed on. And so those were my most fascinating experiences then. And I didn't think of myself as anything different. I just thought, well, this happens to me and nobody can explain why. So I went into secrecy about it, because culturally and where I grew up and all of that wasn't really something well talked about. And then in my teenagehood, I remember going through abandoned houses and always being like the really curious person to go and figure out what's going on. And I always was able to tell the story. Oh, in this bedroom was a little girl. I could see her little rocking chair that had her doll, and I could describe it to detail. This room over here, this is where a man used to live, and this was his mother's home, and things like that. And then being able to find newspaper clippings that also verified the time of day. Then when I was in my later 20s, about 25 to 28, I think it was, I was living over in Hawaii. And when I was in Hawaii, I was living with some Native Hawaiians. And so I studied some of their tradition, but also went into some of the areas where there were also like the Goosebumps story. And I went with a guide who knew the area and knew the stories like the back of his hand. He was actually a tour guide, so he did this professionally, teaching these stories and bringing tourists to these areas. And so he took into these areas with me not having any past information, education about it at all. The information that we got out of it, with both what he was able to confirm in the stories that had been passed down to him and being able to confirm it with police records and that kind of thing, there was only one tiny detail that I didn't have correct, and that was the spelling of a name. So I thought, okay, there's got to be something to this. And in Hawaii, it's not allowed for a woman to be an intuitive in that nature, so I was not able to come out, if you will. So I came back to the States, and then that took me over to Australia. And Australia, my intention was to open my heart, was to let my heart lead me and guide me and find who I truly was. So from the age of about 30 until about 36, I was full focus study on a lot of these skills and techniques that I have been trained in and certified in, and now teach and work with. And
so I can only imagine that people come to you for all different reasons. I would
Yes.
imagine that most are, I continue to focus onto the one reason why people have signed up for this summit, because we are interested in living the dream. People have all different dreams, and I feel impressed to ask you specifically. Some of the people in our audience are struggling with health issues. Most people have some sort of challenge health-wise, and I'm sure that you have tools that can support and encourage and help. And I want you to talk about those tools. The specific question that our audience wants to ask is, how do I take my health to the next ultimate level? So wherever people are on their health game that they're playing, how would you suggest, what do you intuitively feel like you want to ask or share with us about how to take us to the next level with our health?
Simple answer.
Oh, good.
Let the body teach you. The body is far more intelligent than we give it credit for. We forget, and we come into this place of not trusting nature. Well, our physical body is nature. So if we don't trust that, then we are not having a healthy relationship with that. So that's the first place, is to start letting the body teach you what is natural, what is nature.
Wow, chills
I have techniques
everywhere.
with that. I actually work in addiction recovery centers. So the tools and techniques that I share and teach there are profoundly that. Because when you go from a point of disease or addiction, you have gone through a part of your life where you've lost or forgotten who you are. And in order to get out of that cycle of dissociative patterns, being distracted, trying to find something outside that will cure you, or at least help you deal with the symptoms, to kind of placate you, all of that is like a dog chasing its tail. So rather than going on the outside world and trying to find all those sorts of things to fill that hole, you've got to find what's your motivation. And if you don't have any, then you've got to find some tools, some basic mindfulness techniques to discover where your motivation lies. When you're in that fight or flight state where it's like all you're trying to do is pay the bills and get by in life, and that's really hard because you're just in survival mode. And a lot of us in that place think, well, I don't have the ability, I don't have any motivation, I don't have even the desire to go and find any help. And that's the place that all you have to do is reach out to somebody that says, I have some tools that can teach you how to take baby steps out of your hole, that are tools that you can use no matter where you're at. Say you've totally regained yourself and you feel so abundant in your life, you love what you do for work, you feel connected to your community, you really feel that your heart and your head can be on the same page often, which brings you that sense of like, I'm living kind of feeling. Then even with those situations, we still have challenges, we still have opportunities for growth, which can always take us back to that state of going, wait a second, where are my tools? And so it's the same tools no matter where you're at on that part of your life, in that chapter of your life, that those tools can help basically get head and heart on the same page, find that little silver lining of peace that can exist in every moment. We just have to take the second to look at it. It's that mindfulness, and that peace is then the key to finding where we can create from. It's the transition from going from death or falling into ourself, losing ourself, into life, into the creator. So it's good to have both, but it's also good to be able to incorporate both of them in any situations and not be, too full on in just one. So yes, accept that you're going through a death, but also find those moments to create within the death. Yes, you're in that full creation, but also allow the death to incorporate itself where it needs to be, so that instead of feeling like you're at the peak or at the low of every bit of your ride, you feel like, oh, there's a little bit of this and there's a little bit of this, but I'm like a Zen master and I can just cruise right through. So that's where I'm so empowered and passionate about empowering people to learn how to do that.
Well, I want to specifically focus on one thing that I feel like can really be beneficial. I have found that fear comes in so many different ways. This is in a way that we block our dream. So the dream is alive in us. We get to trust our bodies, trust our dream, trust our heart. And then right about then, when we are trusting ourselves, there comes the clouds of fears and just, and then what happens is we decide to, have that actually be the stopping of the point. That's the end. And I want so much to hear your perspective. How, this is what the audience wants to hear too. How can I dissipate my fear? Emily Spirit, tell us, what would you share with this audience? How can we dissipate the fears, eliminate those excuses so that the dream can flourish and thrive?
So 3 stages. First, acceptance. Wow, that exists. You don't have to like it. You don't have to think that it's politically correct. Just go, wow, that is what it is. That exists. Second thing, what do you want? What do you want now that you've accepted that? And if you can't get into the I don't know what I want, if you're just like, I can't be in that, I can't create, I can't figure this out, then go back to saying, I need to fully accept. So accepting fully is so key to be able to move on to the next one and asking, what do I want? So when you say, oh, this is what I want, say, okay, can I add that to step 1? Can I add that to the fear that already exists? And if you can, then your experience becomes even more full. So full that you're starting to build your passion. You're starting to feel that internal fire, or that, whoa, this is so intense. And then the step 3 is create. Then it's the action, the divine action, placing that what I want and putting it into more of some real solutions that you can work from.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm getting chills everywhere. And what I love about it is it feels like you have had personal experience of that working. So it's not just words, Emily. You're not just saying really beautiful, nice steps of what you've read somewhere. It feels, my heart to yours, it feels like you've experienced this yourself, which makes you the real deal. I'll just say it. I want to ask something that it's a little bit, so I took, when people signed up for the summit, I asked them these specific questions of what they want to hear. And most of them are the ones that we've already talked about, the fears and health. One that didn't get such a strong percentage, but I really am curious about your take on it, because I feel like you really understand community. It's something that you get the power of people coming together, celebrating each other. Ooh, I'm getting chills. I just know that's true for you. And I want to ask, as people are living the dream, the first thing that happens is other people get jealous of them. And there's competition and there's criticism. That's going to happen. We just get to expect that's going to happen when we're living our dream. And some of the audience has admitted that they have a really strong struggle in celebrating when other people are living the dream. So the question is, how, instead of comparisons, instead of competitions, instead of criticisms of people who are living the dream around us, and jealousy is such a teacher, we'll just say it's a teacher. How can we make a habit of celebrating each other and each other's dreams? What do you feel?
Well, okay. Everything derives off of fear and love. So any of the deadly sins are all based off of fear. And we have a fear in separation, or a fear also that we won't be unified, or that we won't be able to connect. Our human greatest need is connection. And that could be connection to ourselves, or to nature, or to another, or to a group of people, to community. So our greatest need is to connect. Now, something that you pointed out earlier, and I want to just tie this in, is the saboteur, is what I call it. You're building, you're manifesting, you're doing everything you can to try and prepare for, that thing that you're going to be receiving. And then the saboteur comes in and goes, yeah, just kidding. This isn't going to happen for you. Last minute, no, destroyed. So the saboteur is also a form or a characteristic of what I like to term as just resistance. Whenever we have that opportunity for resistance to teach us, it can come through the saboteur or the jealous person or the person that, you know, you're trying to break through, you're trying to change yourself, and you're getting resistance from because things aren't falling into place, because people are objecting to your change towards anything like that. That resistance is telling you you're about to break a threshold. So that resistance says, if you break through this threshold, you will not be the same. So that fear is coming from, I don't know who I'll be if I break through this threshold. Or this person doesn't know if they can love me if I change. And furthermore, they don't know if they can love themselves if you change. A lot of it comes from them fearing that in your change that they will no longer be able to connect to you. And we know when we go through our own evolution, we allow ourselves to continue going through life, living, then it takes us to a place of change over and over and over again, which requires the inner death. And it's that inner death that we mourn. So others will mourn with us when they see that we're going through a death. And sometimes that looks like we have to go through separation. And sometimes it's important to, like, physically separate, have some time apart. And then once that person or both people have gone through whatever transmutation or transformation they need to go, then if they're meant to, then they will reconnect, but they will reconnect at a different vibration. So we never really lose people. We lose aspects of ourself, and hopefully we're regaining aspects of ourself and not becoming dependent or codependent on others to try and find those parts of ourself that we've lost.
That was a very tender answer. That feels so beautiful. I want to keep asking questions, so I won't say anything more, but I really want to thank you for that. I want to ask you specific tools that you can offer, things for this audience. We're in a moment, we're going to ask you about the free gifts that you're going to be offering, but just in general, if people are wowed by you as much as I've been wowed by you, what is it that you offer for people who are looking for ultimate health and for breaking through all of the things that you're talking about? What are the tools?
So I teach classes, and I also teach individuals. So I offer intuitive sessions, both on phone, Skype, even sometimes just a bit of support through emails. With all of my sessions and all of my work, I have the opportunity to always teach people. So I love teaching, I love empowering, I love experiencing with people. That's what really keeps me motivated in this line of work. Plus I love all of it. I just really feel like I'm quite connected to the information that I'm here to share, and it's a lot of fun. It's very inspiring. So then I also do mentoring and that type of teaching, to where if somebody's interested in learning how to be intuitive or learning how to be a medium, then that's often where I get the mentor clients. I also have something that's fairly unique, and I teach this in the way of talking about the dimensions. So when you are conscious to connecting to your heart, this is where you're entering into the fifth dimension. Once you go into the fifth dimension, then you start accessing the sixth, the seventh, eighth, and possibly even the ninth. Now, what this can take you into is identifying what's more of your higher purpose, like higher purpose, like big purpose. And I find that people tend to go one way or the other, and that is either that they gravitate towards sound, or they gravitate towards sacred geometry. And these are the sixth and the seventh dimensions. So I gravitate towards sound. So that's a session that I do vocal toning and sound harmonics using my voice and my medicine drum. People will come in and see me and do an intuitive session. So we'll do work on the table, on like a card table, sitting down. And then afterwards, just to follow up, we'll do like a 5-10 minute sound session. And what that does is it takes all of that mental information and integrates it into the cellular level, so that they get that profoundly holistic approach to whatever it was that we identified with and were able to connect to. And then that carries forward. I get reports of up to 3 weeks of a sensation, of an experience, that sound session carries them through. The sound has also been so profound through anybody who's had like physical ailments and things like that, to really help push them and expedite them through whatever processes they need to go through, to help find more of their own individual healing. I'm a Reiki master. So when I do energy work, when I do sound work, it's all there. I do color therapy. I lay on crystals. Anything that I can play with and use, if it's calling me to, I use. I maintain the highest perspective. So my saying that I always say in my head is, this is for the highest good of all. And then I ask the person to identify their intention. And my intention is just to be shared with the highest good of all and their intention. And then I work from that space, and I am intuitively guided as to what sounds I hear in my ear, in my inner ear. And then I make those sounds. The timing as to when I stop and start is all intuitively directed. So it gives a very unique and specific purpose or placement for each person. I've also been able to do this over the phone, and I can sing your heart song. So if you want to ask for what your heart song sounds like, then I can intuit that and sing a heart song for you. And basically that just means that as your soul connects through your human body, the vibration and the harmony that is being created with you at that time. I also, like I said, I'm a teacher and all that. When I gave birth to my first and only son at this time, I was, of course, opened up into the world of midwifery and birth. And that is one of the most profoundly impactful, rites of passage experience, etc. It's all about birth, death, sex, rebirth, all of those transitionary points that are massive in a person's life. It would be really special for any individual to be able to have an advocate, somebody to be there to help them through that experience. So that's kind of how I see myself in my role. In the birth world, it's called a doula. The doula is there to help the mother, and it's literally termed, I think it's Greek or something, the mother to the mother. So I am certified as a doula, a postpartum doula, and in the hypno style of doula work. So I also incorporate all of my mindfulness and meditation techniques and teachings within those services. And then I'm also a marriage celebrant. So my ceremonial aspect in me will come out with that. I bring my medicine drum, sometimes do some chanting and some singing. I'm incredibly passionate about ceremony. That kind of goes back to the idea of how to connect to our community and why that's so important. And I'll talk on that in just a second. But ceremony can be in any situation. I've done rites of passage. I've done medicine ceremonies, lead sweat, things of this type of nature, where it's about my position is kind of just east of north. So I identify my position to hold within the space, and then I hold the sacred space for the ceremony, maintaining the almost, if you will, the safety and efficacy of the situation. So it's kind of an odd job, but it's important. I have used it in many, many different settings, and it's incredibly diverse. I've walked into situations where I could see that it was a little bit volatile, and I just sit and center myself and open that sacred space and just ask for basically the highest good to also be there, and just notice waves of differences. So just to touch back on the idea of being a ceremonialist within the marriage celebrant and that type of rites of passage, it brings a real sacredness. And when I was on that plane back from Australia, I said, what is my purpose in coming back to the States? And the message that came to me was ceremony. Sorry, it's really close to my heart. When we connect through ceremony with other people, we do something that cannot exist in any other way. I think there was one statistic that said if 8 people meditate together, it waves out and affects up to 100,000 people. So you can see why it's important.
You know,
we'll just do it through prayer.
That's something I actually did want you to touch on. I'm glad you did, because I believe in the power. I've experienced the power of ceremony as well. And you are saying you bring in ceremony in these places where I would boldly say that in our Western civilization, it's been stripped away from us, where we've got to relearn them. It's not like we have to relearn them because we just remember that the ceremony is who we are. We make a moment significant with ceremony, and then what you just said is that it then impacts the whole world with this beautiful healing. So I very much, I have deep honor for the ceremony that you do and that you lead with such power and such understanding of the power of ceremony. So thank you for that. I know that you're going to be offering a free gift to the audience. Will you share what that is today?
So I'm going to share something that is also incredibly unique. As I mentioned, I'm a sound therapist, and when I came across the power of my sound and the power of my voice, I was blown away of the effect of the feeling. And I did it with a lot of people telling me that it wasn't something that I could do, it wasn't allowed, it wasn't believed in, that I was a con artist, that I was acting like this was something because I wanted to make it so, out of some form of ego. And when I was in session with people, it just kept coming, so I kept doing it. I moved from that area and found that there was a university that teaches it. So that really got my laughter going, and I thought, there's really something to this. So it still hasn't really caught on a whole lot over here in the States, so I decided that that's what I wanted to share with people. So they have a choice of one of 3 different meditations that are both guided by my voice, just soft spoken, into some vocal toning and a little bit of other sounds that I like to incorporate. So yeah, there will be a choice of 3 different ones. I think I know the titles, but you'll have to check in with me to see what I've got going.
Wonderful. That's a very powerful gift for you to give. And I encourage people to sign up to Emily Spirit's email list so that you can receive that free gift. Emily, thank you for joining us today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Very touching. Very touching. And I'm really grateful for the gifts. And thank you so much for living the dream. Thank you for living your dream and living your bliss and your gift to the world.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So I want to just share with everyone that I am doing everything that I'm doing within a gift economy model, which means that I'm giving all of the things that I have to offer, my absolute song of my heart, for free, because I'm doing an experiment to see if I take a stand that money is not a reason to walk away from my dream and what I know to be what I get to do, then I just trust that the universe gets to give to me generously. So if you know that you are part of that, then please feel free to give and to offer a gift in return for this summit, and you'll find my link down below as well. So thank you so much for joining us today, Emily. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Blessings.
Bye-bye.